In this video, we're going to talk about measuring intelligence. So we'll talk a little bit about how intelligence tests are developed, the history and use of IQ tests, and the purpose and the benefits of intelligence testing, as well as some of the dark side, the drawbacks of intelligence testing. So general intelligence, or G, is the idea that we have an overall general intelligence. It's intelligence that contributes to our ability to complete cognitive tasks, and it's measured by most intelligence tests today. And most of the tests today that measure intelligence gives us something called an intelligent quotient. So this is a score on a test that provides a measure of intelligence. So the Stanford-Binet scale of intelligence is a test that's still used today. It was developed by Alfred Binet in 1904. The French government had contacted him to develop a test that would actually identify slow learners. So today, a lot of times we use it to identify people who are gifted, but it was really developed to identify people who were slow learners so that they could be taken out of school and put into remedial work. So the idea of this type of testing was recognized by others, or the value of it. And so Louis Terman, who is from Stanford, he modified the test for Americans, and he collected norms and standardized the test basically. So the standardization ensured that the administration, the scoring, and interpretation was uniform, so that the numbers had more value to them. So norming involves collecting a large amount of data from a population and then comparing groups to provide a reference for comparison of later scores. So our IQ tests, specifically the Stanford-Binet and then some others that we'll talk about later, they've been normed and they're standardized. And so if you have an IQ of 130 or higher, you're gifted or very advanced. 120 to 129, superior. 110 to 119, high, a very high average. 90 to 109 would be average, and then anything below 90 is going to be that below average. So again, norming is collecting large amounts of data to allow us to compare scores we get to these. So the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale was originally named the Wechsler-Bellevue Intelligence Scale and was developed by David Wechsler in 1939. And it's the most widely used intelligence test today. It consists of 15 different tests designed to test cognitive intelligence, including working memory, arithmetic, spatial ability, and general knowledge about the world. Currently, we're on our 4th edition, and it provides scores on perceptual reasoning, processing speed, verbal comprehension, working memory, and there's also a scale for children and another for primary and preschool age children. And here just gives you some examples of different types of questions. So general information, what day of the year is Independence Day? Arithmetic reasoning. If eggs cost 60 cents a dozen, what does one egg cost? So this just gives you some examples of different types of questions on the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale. Now, there are a lot of people who kind of frown upon the idea of IQ tests, and they have good reason for it. So there is definitely a dark side to IQ testing. Besides bias that can be built in the test and other issues, they've also been used for some pretty cruel actions, including eugenics. So eugenics is the idea of trying to improve the quality of a population. And so you exclude those that are deemed inferior and favor those thought to be superior. And while there's a lot of different examples, we'll discuss one that's Buck versus Bell, a court case in 1927. So Carrie Buck, pictured up here, was a patient at a mental hospital with a reported mental age of 9. So we didn't talk about this earlier when we talked about IQ, but mental age involves taking the patient's IQ and dividing it by their age. So a petition was filed to sterilize Carrie Buck, suggesting that she was a threat to society. Buck was born to a woman with a supposed mental age of 8 and raised by an adoptive family. She went to school until 6th grade and was reported to be an average student. She became pregnant at the age of 17, allegedly from a rape by a member of the adoptive family. She was sent away to the institution to prevent embarrassment to the family. So that's why she was at this mental hospital. The courts then used her as an example to legalize a sterilization act that had been proposed in 1924. So again, to summarize, Carrie Buck, supposed mental age of 9, and based off of this case in the Sterilization Act, it's believed that 60 to 70,000 sterilizations of what they called feeble-minded individuals occurred in this time in the name of eugenics. In another case in the 1970s, a group of parents filed a lawsuit because their children had been or could be placed in California's educable mentally retarded classes, which were meant to help individuals with learning disabilities. So the case is Larry P. versus Riles. It was filed in 1971 by 6 African American families in San Francisco. And again, because their children, based on IQ scores, could be placed in this EMR class. So the court rejected the genetic and socioeconomic arguments, but found that the IQ test did present a cultural bias. The court also found that the defendants intentionally discriminated against the African American families, and the IQ test violated Title VI, the Education for All Handicap Act, and the Equal Protection Clauses of both federal and the state constitutions. So the court stated that the IQ test could no longer be allowed to identify children for the EMR classes, and ordered the state to look into the disproportionate enrollment of African American students in those EMR classes. So EMR being educable mentally retarded classes. So, and this is a picture of Larry P. at the age of 40, and there will be an article linked to Canvas if you want to learn more about him.